So I think this one is going to get a lot of media attention. The headline is Uber drivers are organizing protests at billionaire investors' homes, right? And when Uber's early investors cash out on November the 6th, and you will bet that they will cash out, right? For the first time since the company went public, drivers on the app will protest outside the homes of top investors. So if you have the addresses of these homes, send them on over. I will make another separate video about that. So let's get into this. This was written by Lauren Gurley. Thank you for putting this together at vice.com. And on November the 6th, this is the date, right? Early Uber investors, founders, and employees will be able to cash out of the ride-hailing company for the first time since it went public in May. It could be a bloodbath or a big payday for those with a large stake in the company. Now, I made a previous video a couple of weeks ago about the SEC. You can check all the filings there. Who's cashing out, what's going on. You can go back to that video and check out that link. Investors aren't the only ones anticipating the occasion. However, Uber drivers, building on momentum from recent organizing victories in California, will use the opportunity to literally get in the faces of the company's top investors. Rideshare drivers plan to demonstrate outside at least 3 investors' homes and offices, including Uber venture capitalist Bill Gurley in Silicon Valley and Uber co-founder Garrett Camp in Los Angeles. I wouldn't want to be around if I was Bill Gurley or Garrett Camp on the 6th of November, right? Looks like masses are going to descend on your home. These guys are making billions of dollars while they're claiming they can't afford to pay us a fair wage, said Jeff Perry, 39, an Uber driver from Sacramento and one of the protest lead organizers. This is a great opportunity to highlight the differences between the two classes within Uber, within the investors and the drivers, to show really what's going on here. Who's bringing in the money? Who's capitalizing from our hard work? 2 groups that represent rideshare drivers in California. They've been pretty involved. Gig Workers Rising and Mobile Workers Alliance in Los Angeles will lead the protests. Drivers plan to demand a pathway to unionization. To me, I think it's Gig Workers Rising and Mobile Workers Alliance trying to recruit more people for the unions. These unions are falling apart, so they see this as a great opportunity to fire up the unions and enroll more drivers. You know, at the end of the day, I would really like to know the true intentions of Gig Workers Rising and Mobile Workers Alliance. Why are you doing this? Are you doing this for the drivers, or are you doing this for your unions? They hope to highlight the differences between Uber's billionaire stakeholders and its labor force, which isn't guaranteed a minimum wage. Now, don't get me wrong. I like what they're doing. I like that they're bringing a lot of attention to this and getting this back into the media and putting additional pressure on Uber and Lyft. They hate this type of stuff being out in the public. The public needs to read about this. We need to create awareness about this. So once these addresses of these individuals are published, right, I think it would be a good idea if you're in Silicon Valley or surroundings, or whether you're in LA, to literally show up at the guy's house. Uber has rapidly expanded into 700 cities across the world, in large part by relying on a business model that preys on drivers who do not receive basic labor protections and benefits like overtime pay, workers' compensation, and health insurance. According to a 2018 study by the Economic Policy Institute, Uber drivers earn $9.21 an hour, after accounting for the costs of gas, car maintenance, and other expenses. That's below the minimum wage in 13 of its 20 biggest urban markets in the United States. Our overall idea for the protest comes from the sense that this group of people and financial enterprises are getting extremely rich regardless of the way Uber treats its drivers, said Idan Alva, 49, an Uber driver from the East Bay, also involved in organizing the November 6 protest. I think they'll do well, and I think the media will definitely cover this. Alva told Motherboard that he has had to sign up for government assistance to support himself and his son since he lost his job as a security management contractor for PayPal last year. Uber co-founder Garrett Camp's $71 million Beverly Hills mansion was an obvious choice for a protest site. Camp, who has been described as the visionary behind Uber's business model, had around $3.2 billion in the company's stock at the time of its public offering in May. And he stands to cash out big time on November the 6th. Bay Area organizers say they selected Bill Gurley's home in Atherton, California, as another protest site because of the massive profits he has reaped off his stake in the company as a partner at Benchmark, one of Uber's top venture capital investors when it was a startup. When the rideshare giant went public in May, Gurley received one of the fattest payouts in venture capital history, estimated at over $600 million. In a 2018 blog post called "The Thing I Love Most About Uber," Gurley wrote that driving with Uber reverses the way we have been trained to think about labor. Instead of making labor conform to management's notion of a job, Uber hands control to its workers. But contrary to Gurley's blog post, many drivers say that the company tightened its grasp over its workers, in particular by slashing wages and determining the share of earnings on a ride that go into the pockets of the company. A third action will take place at Google Community Space, a free event and co-working space for nonprofits in downtown San Francisco. That action will target Google Ventures, an investment branch of Google's parent company that had an estimated $5.2 billion in shares in Uber's around the time of its IPO in May. In 2013, Google Ventures made its largest ever investment, putting $250 million into Uber, which then grew 20-fold in value as the company expanded. Uber's shares have plummeted from $45 to $32 per share since May. Perry, the Uber driver and organizer, says he hopes that targeting specific investors will force them to grapple with how their decisions have impacted real people. So, show up. This year, drivers in California have transformed the state into a hotbed for rideshare driver organizing. In March, Los Angeles drivers organized the first major rideshare strike in the United States over pay cuts. In September, drivers across the state fought and helped win the passage of a historic law that will make gig workers in California the first in the country to qualify for basic labor protections and rights, including a minimum wage, overtime pay, and compensation for work-related injuries. The organizers of the November 6 protest told Motherboard that they hope rideshare drivers in other cities and countries learn about the action and plan their own actions for that day. We want to send a message and say, hey, look, there has to be some sort of moral responsibility for your investment. You're not going to sail off into the sunset when this is the way you profited, not without having to look me in the eyes and say it. Uber did not immediately respond to a request for comment. That's the obvious case. I would have not expected otherwise. So I will leave the link to this article, interesting article, and hopefully we get those addresses so we can share them and you show up either at that Google place or at that investor in Silicon Valley or at the other investor camp in LA, right? Let's get the people out. Let's get the media involved. And again, thank you, Lauren, for such a great article. Have a great day.